Calling women birds is plainly sexist. A judge rules at a tribunal of a female Barclays investment banker who wins sex discrimination claim against her boss. Birds is a term that I use. Like when I was younger, if someone would go, "Is that your bird?" I'd be like, "Aye, that's my bird." "Is that your bird?" "Aye, that's my bird." It was just a name for your girlfriend. Maybe it means something different in England, but like up here, like your bird is just a name for your girlfriend because it's a pet name. Like little bird. It's just a nice little name, right? I've never said it in a derogatory sort of way. It's just a nice name to call your girlfriend. Judge John Crossville ruled that calling women birds is plainly sexist and misplaced. Well, it's nice to know that this judge has completely overruled, everybody else in the country who uses it for different reasons. This man has decided this slang vernacular. Judges are usually very good with slang, from their fucking posh background and shit. The ruling came in a case between Barclays investment banker against her boss. She won a sex discrimination claim after her boss repeatedly called women birds. How awful. It must have been so terrible for you. I hope you got a psychiatrist. That must have been terrible, man. You must cry yourself to sleep at night. How awful. Calling women birds is plainly sexist, and it is foolish to use the term even jokingly. A judge has ruled. Oh, look, judges ruling against jokes. Oh, how about that? How about that? That's new. That's not like them. Judge John Crossville said using the phrase ironically at work in an attempt at humour is misplaced. How about you wind your neck in because that's not for you to decide? That's not for you to decide. It's not up to you to decide how people socially interact with each other. If someone says something that someone doesn't like, then they can address it. We don't need our taxes being wasted on fucking judges deciding that shit. Wind your neck in. The ruling came in the case of a Barclays investment banker who won a sex discrimination claim after her boss repeatedly called women birds. Again, how terrible. Hang him in the town square. Anka Lakatis said that James Kinghorn, Kinghorn, so you've got a Chad name, continued to use the term even after she told him to stop, as he was trying to make her feel uncomfortable, a tribunal heard. I can kind of understand that whenever people tell me not to say certain words or phrases, it just makes me want to say it more, because fuck you, that's why. That's just a repeat of what I just said. Mr. Kinghorn defended his use of the word by saying he was being light-hearted, but the tribunal ruled the term as plainly sexist and it was foolish to think anyone would find it funny. I find it funny. I mean, sorry, see when it comes to what is or isn't a sense of humour or what is or isn't a funny joke, I don't expect a tribunal to understand any of that because, most authorities like judges and police and everything are completely devoid of humour. They are soulless husks that barely have any social interaction capabilities whatsoever. Judges, most of all. Most of all judges. The East London Tribunal heard that Miss Lakatis would have been reluctant to complain about her boss's sexist language out of fear it would have been damaging to her career. Imagine what is going to happen to your career now when people find out you take your employer to tribunals over them using the word birds. Basically, if I found that out, I would not hire you. I would not hire you at all. I'd be like, oh yeah, come in there. Come on in, court case waiting to happen. It's like, no, I would not hire you. She is now set to receive compensation for his treatment of her. The Romanian worked as a £46,000 a year analyst for Barclays in what was her first job in investment banking after completing an investments and finance masters as Queen's... I think it's meant to say at. Jesus Christ, man, you get... journalisming, and they don't even spell check, at Queen Mary University in London. In a statement, Miss Lakatis said her boss, Mr. Kinghorn, referred to a female employee as a bird in February 2018. How terrible. Is that it? No, it's not. Right. She said that she immediately told him off for using the phrase, but then he continued to say it in an effort to make her feel uncomfortable. Well, that's what you get. And Mr. Kinghorn told her that she should not report him to HR for referring to women in such an offensive way. She said, pretty much, because it's a minor little nonsense thing. The tribunal held Mr. Kinghorn assumed that Miss Lakatis saw his use of the word bird as a light-hearted banter, and that he was joking about reporting the behaviour to HR. I understand that probably was the case. But the tribunal has accepted his language had been inappropriate, and the judge branded it as plainly sexist. So saith the judge, and judges are always right. Judge John Crosswell said the use of the phrase bird was a misplaced use of irony which inadvertently caused offence. We accept that when this was pointed out to Mr. Kinghorn, he ultimately got the message and stopped trying to be funny. We consider that it was very foolish to assume that anybody else would find this language amusing. Again, I am not going to listen to courts when it comes down to what is or is not funny. They have no concept of comedy whatsoever. That's why you see joking around a police officer, don't do it. Don't do it. But police officers, judges, they don't understand jokes. The concept of comedy is completely lost to them. They're robots, essentially. They're not human like the rest of us, right? You make a joke around them, like if you say, like, oh, why did the chicken cross the road? You seen a chicken cross the road? That's the way they would react. They don't understand it. We find that it is likely that it took some time before Miss Lakatis was sufficiently blunt that the message hit home. The language is plainly sexist, whether misplaced irony or not. Judge Crosswell said that Mr. Kinghorn did not set out to deliberately offend Miss Lakatis, but that he used the word more often than he was prepared to admit. The tribunal also ruled that Miss Lakatis would have been reluctant to speak about her boss's sexist language at the time, as she would have been worried about the damage it could do to her career. I guarantee you that this has definitely done damage to your career. No one's going to want to hire you after this. I know employers. I am an employer. And we know trouble when we see it. It said that we have regard to the fact that this was Miss Lakatis' first job in investment banking. As such, we would accept that she would be keen to do well and did not want to be seen as a troublemaker. Well, now she is. We find that Miss Lakatis would have been reluctant to raise the issue of Mr. Kinghorn's sexist language for fear that her career would be damaged if she did. At the tribunal, Miss Lakatis also won her claim that Barclays failed to accommodate her request to adjust her working hours because she suffered from endometriosis and anxiety. Why was that not established when you first got employed by them? I'm not sure. Miss Lakatis was often expected to work late past 7 p.m. and work between 40 and 48 hours a week on average, the tribunal in London held. Was that in your contract? Was that something you agreed to at the start? If it wasn't in your contract, then you're perfectly within your right to refuse those hours, if that was not in your contract. If it was, though, well, then that's your problem. Judge Crosswell said as her illness progressed, Miss Lakatis became progressively more exhausted. We accept that working as hard as the team did was tough on everybody, but doing so whilst coping with endometriosis and stress and anxiety would make it much harder. Being required to work for long hours placed Miss Lakatis at a substantial disadvantage compared to others without a disability. Barclays' failure to adjust Miss Lakatis' hours is, in our view, a serious act of discrimination and one that was exceedingly thoughtless. Miss Lakatis was signed off in January 2019 and was later made redundant by the bank. A hearing to decide compensation will take place at a later date, and she is going to get fucking thousands because it's a bank, and sexism was involved. I think the main reason that she wanted the claim was because I'm thinking about it. I think the main reason she wanted the claim was because she got made redundant, and she just threw that bird shit in there just to really make sure that her case stuck at the tribunal. Basically, if you want something to be more successful, just throw some of the diversity stuff in there. Basically, if you're applying for a job, try and just tick bisexual. How are they going to know? Just tick the box. Better chance of getting the job. Another thing as well is if you phone the police because your house has been burgled, what to do is write some racist graffiti on the wall and tell them that on the phone, and instead of having to wait up to 6 hours for a police car, they'll be there instantly. Oh, he wrote some racist graffiti on the wall. Woo, sirens outside right away. Aye. Basically, don't hire women. I'm just saying, right? I would. I don't have any positions open right now, although we might one day get a coffee jockey. We might get a coffee jockey one day. But I would hire women, but it just makes me nervous because this is A lot of men work here. This is quite a manly place, and a lot of things get said. A lot of things get said in this office, and we would be concerned of someone coming in here and not acknowledging the spicy jokes and spicy humour, and that'd be a recipe for disaster. So, personally, yeah, probably wouldn't hire him, right? But I do know I would. But I do know like other employers who are extremely reluctant to hire women, and it's because of stuff like this. It's because of stuff like this because some people they just like to cause problems. And basically, Miss Lakatis, I can guarantee you one thing that people do is the employers will look up your names for past employment tribunals or past complaints or like other stuff like that, and basically if they find something like this, they go, no, that person's trouble. I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not condoning it, but that is something that employers do. Right, so basically, I mean, if you have like a genuine grievance against your employer, then file your stuff with the tribunal. If they have done something genuinely bad, then absolutely they should be held to account, and you should be due any compensation that you are due. However, calling someone birds in the office, fucking get over yourself.